Courtney Holmes is driving with her sister, Tessa, enjoying a peaceful moment when a sudden distraction from her phone causes her to lose control of the car. In an instant, the vehicle crashes against the road railing and plummets into the river. 9 years later, Courtney, now a medical student, finds herself haunted by the accident. She conducts her rounds in the hospital. While checking on a patient who had a near-death experience earlier that day, Courtney's curiosity pushes her to ask if the woman remembered anything from the time her heart stopped. The patient responds by inquiring if Courtney herself has lost someone, a question that strikes deep into her soul. In the same hospital, fellow medical students Ray and Marlo exhibit a subtle but palpable rivalry while attending to their patients. Later that evening, Courtney retreats to the library, diving into research on the afterlife. As she studies, her attention is drawn to her classmate Sophia Manning, who is sitting at a nearby table. Approaching her, Courtney learns that Sophia is under immense pressure, especially from her mother, as she struggles to keep up with the grueling demands of medical school. Courtney offers Sophia a chance to escape her stress for a while and invites her to join a special side project she's working on. Sophia hesitates, unsure of what Courtney means, and leaves the invitation open-ended. The next day, in class, Courtney, Sophia, Ray, Marlo, and their friend Jamie are reprimanded by their professor for failing to provide quick, accurate answers. Later, Sophia and Jamie attend a doctor's event, though Jamie is only there to flirt with a caterer. Sophia texts her overbearing mother, acknowledging the constant surveillance she's under. After another shift at the hospital, Courtney approaches Jamie and invites him to have some fun later in the hospital's basement. Jamie, misinterpreting her intent, agrees with a flirtatious smile, only for Courtney to clarify that he should take the service elevator to avoid security cameras. Intrigued, Jamie agrees. Later that night, Jamie and Sophia meet Courtney in the hospital's basement, where a hidden, fully functional clinic awaits them. Courtney finally reveals her secret project. She's been investigating the brain's response to near-death experiences and wants to map it out using an imaging scanner. Her plan is extreme. She wants to induce her own death for a minute to study the process before being revived. Jamie, reckless and excited by the idea, agrees to help, while Sophia is horrified and refuses to participate. Undeterred, Courtney proceeds. With Jamie's assistance, she administers a lethal combination of drugs and uses the defibrillator to stop her heart. As her body dies, her consciousness detaches, and she has an out-of-body experience, soaring through the hospital, then out across the city. She sees the roof, the streets, and the life flowing beneath her. 1 minute passes, but Jamie and Sophia struggle to bring her back. In a panic, Sophia pages Ray for help, and he rushes to their aid, with Marlo following closely behind, suspicious of Ray's sudden departure. As Courtney's journey continues, she experiences an overwhelming vision. An explosion that obliterates the room, followed by her presence at a glowing bridge surrounded by pulsing lights. Her friends, frantic, manage to revive her just as the vision begins to fade. Courtney gasps back to life, and as Sophia angrily calls her insane, Marlo bursts into the room, demanding answers. They hastily explain everything, and soon after, the five of them return to Courtney's apartment, where she recounts her near-death experience, describing it as an intense feeling of pure energy. They watch the scanner footage together, stunned by the electric bolts that light up her brain at different intervals during the experience. Ray, unsettled by the whole ordeal, leaves, calling the experiment reckless. Later, Courtney stands on her balcony, gazing out at the city, lost in thought. When Marlo checks on her, Courtney cryptically mentions that she feels an overwhelming urge to bake. The next morning, she brings freshly baked bread to class, surprising everyone when she reveals that she baked 6 loaves, using her grandmother's long-forgotten recipe. Courtney also casually mentions running 12 miles. During class, her newfound abilities become evident. She effortlessly answers complex medical questions, including obscure information she hadn't thought about in years. Her friends marvel at her newfound brain function, calling it a sort of rewiring. That evening, at a bar, Courtney shocks everyone further by sitting down at a piano and playing flawlessly, despite not having touched the keys in over a decade. Her friends are captivated, but Ray remains skeptical, warning that these experiments are dangerous. Meanwhile, Jamie, thrilled by Courtney's results, volunteers to be the next to flatline. Later that night, at Courtney's apartment, she begins to sense something strange. Hearing a noise from the bathroom, she cautiously pulls back the shower curtain but finds nothing. As she turns to leave, she hears the sound again, and when she returns, she finds the curtain mysteriously fallen into the tub, now filled with water. Suddenly, a grotesque face emerges from the water, and Courtney stumbles back in terror, only to realize moments later that it was all in her head. The following night, Jamie flatlines, his consciousness transported to a thrilling vision of himself speeding down a highway on a motorcycle. A blonde woman, Alicia, appears behind him, clinging tightly as they ride together. But the excitement quickly turns ominous as they approach a dark, desolate neighborhood. The woman whispers his name before vanishing, and Jamie is left alone, his name echoing in the darkness as his friends revive him just in time. After confirming he's fine, the group heads to Courtney's apartment to drink and party. Courtney, in high spirits, suggests breaking one of the apartment's walls, and to everyone's surprise, they agree. She and Jamie seem perfectly in sync, sharing a kiss before a spontaneous snowball fight in their underwear when hail begins to fall. Ray still refuses to participate in flatlining, but Marlo announces she'll go next. As they discuss their experiences, Courtney asks Jamie if he saw anything disturbing. He says no. The next day at the hospital, Jamie makes a series of swift, life-saving decisions for multiple patients. Marlo observes the contrast between him and Courtney. While Courtney is fixated on the past, bringing up old memories, Jamie seems to live in the present, relying on instinct. Marlo admits she can't see how these two perspectives connect. Later, as they return to work, Jamie spots Alicia standing in the middle of the street. He's momentarily distracted by a nurse asking about an abortion, and when he looks back, Alicia is gone. That evening, Sophia tries to leave her apartment, but her mother refuses, forcing her to stay and study. The group proceeds without her, and this time, Marlo steps up to flatline. She insists on staying out for 3 minutes instead of 1. As her heart stops, Marlo's visions pull her through the highlights of her life, only to abruptly show her the word murderer and the haunting memory of Cyrus, a patient she couldn't save. His lifeless body appears at the bottom of a murky pool, and as she approaches, she's jolted back to life by the group. They rush her to the roof to help her catch her breath, surprised when Sophia unexpectedly shows up, insisting she be the next to flatline. Ray protests, but the group shuts him down, reminding him he's as involved as they are now. Courtney and Marlo agree to help Sophia, but warn her they need to be quick, as the cleaning crew will arrive soon. Sophia flatlines, and her vision reveals her teenage years, marked by the constant pressure from her mother to excel academically. Overwhelmed with jealousy towards Irina, a classmate who outperformed her, Sophia hacked Irina's phone, leaking private, intimate photos. Just as her vision reaches a critical point, the cleaning crew arrives, forcing her friends to rush the revival process. Jamie sets off the fire alarm to distract the staff while the group escapes, narrowly evading security guards. Their adrenaline fades quickly as Marlo speeds off, and soon they're at a party, dancing and drinking. Courtney leaves the dance floor when she spots Tessa in the crowd. Following her to the parking lot, Courtney's world warps into a hallucination. The area empties, leaving only her mangled old car. As she approaches, she sees Tessa's lifeless body submerged in water inside. Tessa's hand suddenly shoots up, terrifying Courtney and snapping her back to reality. Shaken, she leaves the party. Sophia, still euphoric from her flatlining experience, takes Jamie back to her apartment. Despite her mother's protests, Sophia and Jamie have continued their fun, ignoring her mother's attempts to stop them. After Jamie leaves, Sophia confronts her mother, declaring her intent to move out, standing up for herself for the first time. Meanwhile, Marlo and Ray leave the party together. Back at Marlo's place, she pours them drinks and confesses the truth about Cyrus. His death was her fault. She had made a fatal error in his treatment. Marlo admits she's terrified because she saw him during her flatlining. Ray reassures her, insisting she's a good person and everything will be fine, before they share a kiss and make love. Later that night, Courtney revisits the bridge where her sister died. Overcome with guilt, she breaks down, reliving the accident that took her sister's life. Meanwhile, Jamie returns to his boathouse and experiences a chilling vision. He first sees Alicia crying on his bed, then hears the distant sound of a baby crying beneath his furniture. As he searches, he finds a baby blanket. Suddenly, Alicia appears behind him, but vanishes when his phone rings. It's Courtney. She's calling to tell him about her visions. Concerned, Jamie tells her to stay home so he can check on her. Courtney enters her apartment, and eerie music plays from the radio. She shuts it off and records a video on her phone, tearfully confessing that her true motivation for the experiments was to see her sister again, not scientific discovery. Suddenly, a light flickers on in her room, and the radio switches back on. Investigating the noise, she finds Tessa, sitting at a desk, writing. The ghostly figure looks horrifying, and without warning, Tessa chases Courtney through the apartment. Courtney scrambles out the window and onto the fire escape, but when she tries to climb back in through another window, Tessa appears and shoves her off the railing. Courtney falls to her death. The next day, their teacher breaks the news of Courtney's death to the group. Marlo insists they need to address the visions they've all been having, but Jamie has other priorities. He argues they must destroy all evidence of the experiments before the school investigates. Jamie volunteers to break into Courtney's apartment to remove anything incriminating and urges the others to dispose of their notes. Ray, Sophia, and Jamie are overwhelmed by the strange occurrences surrounding them. After a tense exchange, Sophia admits they should have listened to Ray from the start, while Jamie offers Ray an out, suggesting he could walk away. But Ray refuses, determined to stay with them. That night, Marlo receives a call from Jamie while working at the hospital. He informs her that he and Ray found Courtney's computer and notes, but not her phone. Jamie believes the phone must be in the morgue and asks Marlo to retrieve it, given her access. Marlo sneaks into the morgue and locates the phone by making it ring. Just as she's about to leave, she notices Courtney's name on the body list and, out of curiosity, pulls out her body. The sight deeply unsettles her. After putting the body back, Marlo is hit with a terrifying vision. The word murderer is scrawled across the refrigerated unit, and her phone rings with a call from Courtney's number. Answering it, she hears a chilling voice call her name before the power goes out. She turns on her phone's flashlight and sees all the morgue's refrigerated doors wide open. Suddenly, she's attacked by Cyrus's corpse, but she snaps back to reality just in time. Meanwhile, Jamie's experiencing his own horrors. His shower suddenly stops running, and his radio plays eerie baby music. When he finally manages to turn it off by cutting the power, he hears whispers of his name and a woman crying. Panicking, Jamie sees the ghostly figure of Alicia, a woman from his past. He rushes out of the boat, but feels a hand grab his shoulder. Outside, Alicia is waiting for him, and Jamie, horrified, stumbles and falls into the water. As he swims toward the dock, a mysterious figure stabs his hand. The group later gathers to watch a recording made by Courtney. In it, she speaks to Tessa, and Marlo comes to the disturbing conclusion. Their past sins are coming back to haunt them. Jamie insists they must all confess their sins to survive, and begins by sharing his story about Alicia. He reveals that he slept with Alicia and got her pregnant, and though he offered to pay for the abortion, he ultimately abandoned her on the day of the procedure. Last night, it was Alicia who attacked him, though he knows it couldn't have been her, since she is still alive and living elsewhere. Sophia confesses her own sin, revealing how she bullied Irina in high school, but Marlo remains silent about her role in Cyrus's death. The group begins to suspect that some malevolent force, perhaps demonic, is preying on their guilt. Later, while attending a class, Sophia experiences a terrifying vision of her own. She receives insulting text messages, reminiscent of the ones Irina used to get, and sees a video of herself sleeping with Jamie displayed on her computer screen. Shaken, she leaves the room and hears a girl's eerie laughter echoing through the hallway. She tries to flee, but finds herself trapped in an elevator with no ceiling. The elevator transports her to an abandoned classroom where Irina's ghost appears, sending Sophia into a panic. Ray, meanwhile, confronts Marlo at her home, having discovered that she altered Cyrus's autopsy report to cover up her mistake. He urges her to confess to the dean, but Marlo refuses, fearing the loss of her career. Ray coldly tells her that if she won't take responsibility, she doesn't deserve to be a doctor. At the same time, Sophia seeks out Irina and tearfully admits she was the one who circulated her photos, offering a sincere apology. Irina accepts her apology and forgives her. Inspired by this, Jamie calls Marlo, believing that seeking forgiveness is their only way to stop the haunting. He visits Alicia to apologize, only to learn that she never had the abortion and has been raising their son alone. Jamie, overwhelmed with guilt, admits he was a coward and vows to be there for her and their child. That night, as Marlo reads about the afterlife, she begins to experience another haunting vision. She finds herself at the bottom of a dark, empty pool, confronted by Cyrus's body. The moment she touches it, she wakes up. Distraught, she leaves her house, driving through the early morning in tears. As she drives, another hallucination overtakes her. Hands appear from nowhere, pulling a plastic bag over her head, suffocating her and causing her to crash. Ray, growing concerned, receives a message from Marlo saying she wants to end everything. Fearing for her life, Ray contacts Sophia and Jamie, and the trio rushes to find her. They locate Marlo in the hospital's basement, unconscious and flatlining. As they attempt to revive her, Marlo is trapped in her vision. She finds herself in the pool again, facing Cyrus, and finally apologizes for her actions. But Cyrus springs to life and begins to choke her. The scene shifts, and Marlo finds herself strapped to a stretcher, with Cyrus pushing her into an empty room. Struggling to escape, she is flung into a tub filled with water, drowning as Cyrus's hands keep her submerged. As Ray's voice reaches her, begging her to return, Marlo fights to break free. Just as she begins to sink into a violent storm, Courtney's apparition appears, telling Marlo she must forgive herself. At that moment, Ray successfully brings her back to life. A few days later, Marlo accepts that Courtney had been right all along. She visits the dean to take responsibility for falsifying the autopsy report, and the dean places her on probation. Afterward, she and Ray throw Courtney's computer into the river, ensuring no one will ever attempt the experiment again. The movie closes with the group at a bar, toasting to Courtney as they hear a familiar tune, Courtney's song, played by the pianist nearby. Just when they thought they could cheat death, their darkest secrets came back to haunt them. What would you do if your past came knocking? If you enjoyed this recap, Don't forget to like and subscribe for more pulse-pounding movie breakdowns, only on Movies Unboxed.